All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the program. Obviously, today, a very heavy conversation, a very heavy show, and I'm going to be jumping into what we know and what has happened to Charlie Kirk. Obviously, national news everywhere. It's kind of an unbelievable day that we have witnessed yet again another act of absolute senseless, barbaric violence in America. And what makes it incredibly ironic to me that this incredible tragedy has transpired just a few hours after having just done an episode last night on Red Grace Live where we talked about the barbarity and the violence that is unfolding in America right before our eyes, that we are seemingly as a country descending into total barbaric anarchy in our streets. Our political climate is at a fever pitch still, and there are evil, bad actors that are not hesitating to act out in absolute barbaric acts of violence, incomprehensible to the common man. And yet they're willing to do that in broad daylight in front of the whole watching world. And so this is a remarkably terrible and sad day. It takes your breath away. If you have been following the news, everything is developing within minutes. First, we got the news, we got the headlines, we got the alerts, social media, of course, social media way ahead of the the news, way ahead of the news. Social media is way ahead of mainstream media. Mainstream media basically has absolutely nothing to offer by way of cutting edge news at this point. Social media is much, much faster. Everything is developing on social media very, very quickly. Um, and it's just unreal how these things are happening in our culture in this cultural moment that we're living through right now. And to me, it's just an indication of just how absolutely incomprehensible our world is becoming. And I want to talk about Charlie Kirk. I want to talk about his influence, his impact, his legacy. I want to talk about what this means for America, what this means for the church, what this means for us moving forward. Those of us that cover culture and things like that. And what do we do? How do we process what has just happened? If you haven't seen the video, which I do not recommend that you do, but if you do, it is absolutely horrific, unthinkable. Let me make this abundantly clear. Charlie Kirk was martyred today for his faith. He was murdered and martyred in cold blood by some lunatic leftist who could not tolerate a basic Christian world view. And let me tell you, everywhere I'm going right now in town, at the stores, talking to just everyday folks, people are irate. They are upset. They are broken. They are at a loss. And it's unbelievable that we are reaching these levels of depravity right before our very eyes, and we don't seem to be slowing down. This does not seem to be slowing down. And I thought, well, we better talk about these issues because they're not slowing down. They are coming. They're moving. It's moving very, very fast. And who else is in danger? I mean, these things are happening so quickly that, I mean, I remember sitting here not long ago watching news live on television and watching the assassination attempt of President Donald Trump. And I thought, that's the most horrific thing I've ever seen on live television. And it pales in comparison to what I saw today as the video clips begin rolling out. And Charlie Kirk was murdered for having a basic Christian world view. There's no way around this one. This one hurts. This was a very despicable public act of terrorism, persecution, uh, just barbaric violence, unconscionable. Somebody with zero conscience about a fellow image bearer, a person created in the image of God, their fellow man, their neighbor. Their politics have completely blinded them to the reality that you're dealing with a fellow human being, and it's absolutely unspeakable. And everyone's angry, everyone's disturbed. People are at a loss. I told Micah, I said, Micah, we got to go live on the air right now and talk about this. And Micah expressed to me that he's upset, he's angry. I don't blame him. I honestly, I don't want to do this show, but I have to speak to some of these issues that are going on. First and foremost, let me just say that we should be in earnest prayer for Charlie Kirk's family, his wife, his precious children. Pictures of his family that are on social media, I couldn't even look at them because I'd get so upset. But there's something remarkable about Charlie Kirk. I mean, his influence in American political life is absolutely immeasurable. His influence, his ability to galvanize an entire generation of young people for conservative values. Now, everybody understands that I don't even know if Charlie Kirk and I have the same theology when it comes to things like culture and theonomy and postmillennialism and those kinds of things. But it doesn't matter, because Charlie Kirk was an agent for good in the world, because first and foremost, he had a biblical worldview. He testified to the lordship of Jesus Christ and was seeking to influence an entire generation of young people towards a Christian biblical worldview. And I believe he was getting stronger and stronger. I criticized Charlie Kirk at one point because of the forum that he'd had in college, where he was surrounded by liberal students, and he articulated some theological things I think he could have done better. But at the end of the day, Charlie Kirk was giving people a clear biblical gospel, a clear biblical worldview, and he was getting stronger and stronger. He was getting better and better at it. And in recent days, I was actually watching Charlie Kirk. I'm not somebody that actually followed Charlie Kirk closely, in a sense. I obviously saw what he'd be doing, and when he's on a college campus doing some things, there'd be at times I'd peek in and see what he was talking about. And he talked a lot about liberalism and gender issues and transgender issues and things like that. But I just recently, Charlie Kirk began heavily speaking out against jihad, against Islam, against the Islamic invasion right here in America, against the Islamic invasion of Western Europe. All of Europe right now is under complete and total Islamic invasion. They do not know what to do. They don't know how to get out of it. And people are wondering if the European leaders even have the fortitude to correct what is happening, because women and children are literally being raped and murdered daily in broad daylight all over Europe. It's absolutely unconscionable what's happening there. And political leaders, at least in Europe, are incredibly inept. Most of them. Some of them are more conservative than others. But getting back to Charlie, there's no way to slice it. This one is a tough one to swallow. This is a tough pill to swallow. This is a hard, hurtful, painful day in the history of America. One friend texted me, it is a new low, even for this country. It is a new low when something can be done, something so brazen, so absolutely heartless, cold, indifferent. I mean, this person that did this has no conscience. And the fact that he did it in such a public way is absolutely unconscionable and scandalous. There was something about Charlie Kirk that everybody liked. The only reason you hated Charlie Kirk is because you were a wild-eyed liberal, because you were you were on the left and you hated conservative values. And And that, and also if you absolutely hate Christianity. There's no other reason to dislike Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a golden guy. There was something really childlike about Charlie Kirk that just endeared him to everybody. He was so incredibly likable, so incredibly brilliant, talented, articulate, absolute born leader in this country. And they snuffed him out. They cut his life short. 31 years old, gone. And it's because people simply could not tolerate the biblical worldview having that big of a platform. Charlie Kirk was not Catholic. Charlie Kirk was a Christian. Charlie Kirk, I believe, believed in an authentic gospel message, the gospel that saves, the gospel of salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, and was unashamed about his Christian witness. And guys, again, the only reason someone would want to do this to Charlie Kirk is because of the foundation that Charlie Kirk was standing on, the biblical worldview. This person, this murderer that martyred Charlie Kirk, has an absolute hatred of the biblical worldview and of God ultimately. We know that that's what's behind everything. Now, reports are flying left and right as far as who did this, whether we know who did this. People are talking about that we don't know yet. I've seen on social media all over them dragging away some liberal guy, some old guy. I've seen even videos of him being hauled away by the police and people literally attempting to assault him and having the police having to bat people away to keep them away from literally tearing this person to pieces limb by limb. And now others are saying that there's a manhunt, that we don't know who killed him yet. So all of those kind of the details of that supposedly are still forthcoming. I don't know. I don't know if the person that is seen on those videos is an accomplice. I don't know. I heard one social media post where the person they're dragging away is literally yelling, "Kill me, kill me, kill me." That's not something an accomplice does. That's something that someone who just pulled a trigger does. So as far as I'm concerned, the person on social media that they show being hauled away, this old uh, white gentleman, looks like he's in his 60s at least, if not close to 70. The person they're dragging away there, to me, seems to be the person that pulled the trigger, but it'll come out. It'll all come out in the wash. Now, it is incredible to me that in our last episode, I just got done talking about the violence and the barbarity of America and what is going on. And man, if you go on social media right now, there are grown men, white, black, brown. There are grown men and women on social media right now in tears, completely at a loss, in a complete rage, anger, brokenness. They seem lost. They seem like they're exasperated. They don't even know how to process this. And I think we all feel like that in a moment like this because it's so dastardly. It's so over the top barbaric. It's absolutely what the Bible says would happen, that in the last days, men will become brutal. And what's going to have to happen? You know, I posted on social media, Donald Trump cannot save America. There are no secular saviors, guys. Donald Trump cannot save America. Legislation cannot change the human condition. Only the gospel can do that. Only the power of Christ, only the power of the Spirit, only if God himself changes a person from within can there be a change in a person's, not just their worldview, but their disposition. And let me tell you, for me, guys, this hits home because as many of you guys know, I have spent years, I have spent over a decade just at one campus here in North Texas, doing open air preaching out in the public, much like what Charlie Kirk does with his tents, prove me wrong type stuff, Crowder kind of stuff. I would do it standing up on a stool or something like that, talking with college students all day long. And for what, 11, 12 years at least, maybe more, I have had my share of run-ins with people that were on the brink of violently attacking me. And so I know what it feels like to be out on that pedestal, out in the middle of that vulnerable environment. And there's a couple times where if it hadn't been for the police, I feel like I would have been devoured those days. The worst thing that ever happened to me doesn't even compare to what they've just done to Charlie Kirk. But the very worst thing that ever happened to me is somebody spit all over my head. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever had to endure. But the persecution is the same. It's a hatred for God. It's a hatred for the biblical worldview. And that's what we're seeing right now in the political, cultural climate, in the culture wars that are happening right before our eyes. Listen, guys, the reason this is happening is because there is an increasing amount of conservative voices coming from a Judeo-Christian ethic. And that Judeo-Christian ethic strikes right at the sinful heart of man. It taps into their sinful nature, their sinful disposition, and ultimately their war with God. Their antagonism and their hostility, their mental hostility to the law of God, and their hostility against God because they are at enmity with God. And so when you start speaking on issues of sexuality, you are touching people's sacred cow. You are getting at something that by nature they can't help. It's what they are enslaved to. It's what they are identifying with. It's what they think completely defines who they are. Sexual perversion has become tantamount in a lot of people's eyes to human rights. And so the idea that you can declare yourself the opposite sex is now being equated with human rights, with civil rights. And so given enough social conditioning, and guess what Charlie Kirk was doing there in Utah, the University of Utah? Guess what he was doing there? He was speaking out against gender issues, people that are delusional about who they actually are. Okay? He was there speaking on these issues, and this person that murdered him in cold blood, in broad daylight, that martyred him for his Christian belief system, was there to try to suppress the truth about these issues so that more and more and more people would not be influenced by somebody as monumental of a figure, public figure, as Charlie Kirk. Guys, there's just no way to get around this. Charlie Kirk's influence on the mind of American youth, he may have been the biggest influence in the nation. Maybe you can argue Donald Trump. But Charlie Kirk's ability to galvanize American youth was second to none. And they know that he was shaping the minds and the worldviews of future generations, pointing them to a simple Christian biblical worldview. And they couldn't tolerate it. They couldn't accept it. They wouldn't allow it. And so they had to silence his voice indefinitely. And it's absolutely incredible to me that this is what I mentioned last time in our last episode last night. So I told Micah, it's amazing to me that a world as technologically advanced, as modernized as we are, economically, socially, politically, whatever you want to say, with the advent of all these digital tools, and with the announcement of the impending reality of AI and digital agents and robotics that are coming, that modern man is no less barbaric than ancient man. I mean, um, and if you have a biblical worldview, you should not be surprised. You should not be surprised. Um, but I tell you what, as somebody that has done a lot of open air preaching, that has been in the cauldron of, you know, anti anti-Christian crowds, that, you know, having preached at gay parades and stuff like that, pride parades. Um, I tell you what, the animosity is really real. And let me tell you guys, um, be careful out there right now. This is not 10 years ago. This is not even 5 years ago. We are entering kind of a new level of delinquency in America. And um, you might look at this and say, hey, all the more reason to go out now, more than ever, to double down, to stand on a stool, stand on a street corner, go to a college campus. Fine. I'll support you in that. But I just warn you, we're in a different time now. There's just an irrational, delinquent, mentally ill, demonic kind of level of indifference towards humanity, where people do not care that you're a human being in the image of God. If you're on the wrong political side, you are expendable. And some crazy maniac can get rid of you just because they don't like what you posted on social media or what you're about to say on a college campus. It is a new level of devil that we're facing in American culture right now. We just got done being incapable of processing the stabbing of the Ukrainian girl on a train for absolutely no reason by some delinquent monster that just decided to do it because he was hearing voices in his head or something. And I tell you, it's going to be remarkable to see how do we respond as a nation. There, you know, we're dual citizens, guys. We are dual citizens. Our true citizenship as a Christian is in heaven. Um, that's our identity. That's our focus. That's our ultimate hope. But that does not get us off the hook. We are citizens of this nation too. We are citizens, but we are pilgrims and exiles nonetheless. But we have a responsibility, even though we live in this present evil age. And I don't know how much more proof you need of this, people, especially, you know, post-millennial theonomic type of thinkers that are promising we're heading to a golden era. Well, I've got news for you. I'm going to talk about the golden era stuff here in a minute. I've got news for you about that whole golden era talk. Not just what Trump's talking about, but what Christians are talking about. But we're just in a different time now. And so be extremely careful how you go around right now, how you conduct yourself in evangelism, and just what you're doing in the context of a public proclamation of the gospel. Wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove. That needs to be the counsel of the Lord Jesus that we follow. Guys, I don't know what's going to have to happen in American culture regarding liberalism. Michael Savage, of course, if you listen to conservative talk radio, Michael Savage has been declaring for, you know, years, decades, wrote books about it. Liberalism is a mental disorder. I mean, is that what is going to have to happen in America? We're going to have to declare liberalism an official mental disorder so that we can start actually identifying people who live in an alternate reality, that want to say that they're a girl when they're a boy, they're a boy when they're a girl. They want you, and they try to force you to adopt alternate reality. They want you to live in the twilight zone with them. That is mental. That is a mental disorder, and that could happen to people that are not chemically off, but they are epistemologically off. They are philosophically off. Their worldview is off. And that's why they can go to that extreme. Nothing new in the Bible, absolutely nothing new in the Bible when it comes to these gender issues, these sexuality issues, when it comes to concepts like postmodernism, liberalism, Epicureanism, Stoicism, hedonism. These things were all present from time immemorial. So they've been around forever. Nothing new under the sun, right? The Apostle Paul saw all of it. He saw all of it, Mars Hill. The prophets saw all of that with the paganism of their age. So these belief systems have been around forever. And so we just have to be more and more skilled as we minister the gospel and engage in the proclamation of the gospel and in the propagation of the Christian worldview. We just have to get more skilled and lucid at the way that we articulate our worldview. And, it's very early on, and so I want to be very sensitive what I want to say here about Charlie Kirk's martyrdom, Charlie Kirk's death. But I know that one thing happens universally true always when there is martyrdom is that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. And I know a lot of you out there, I understand that you might identify Charlie Kirk more of a political voice. Got it. I don't think he would deny that. But it's also undeniable that Charlie Kirk grounded everything that he did in the biblical worldview, was not ashamed of it, and spoke openly about it. And so when there is martyrdom, God has ordained from the beginning, since Cain killed Abel, that the blood of the martyrs be the seed of the church, and that as the church goes through unspeakable persecution at times, and that persecution can ebb and flow, it can come and go, it can intensify, and it can abate. But as persecution happens throughout church history, you see that on the heels of persecution, there is often great revival, there is often great awakening, because suddenly everyone is awakened and in tuned with the reality that we're dealing with eternal reality here. We are dealing with absolute truth, absolute reality. Someone just sealed their fate because of what they believe. And also, let me just say this about persecution. Christians, brothers and sisters, I know we all consume a lot of news, media, social media, a lot of news and politics. But persecution has been going on. Martyrdom has been going on for centuries. And in recent times, according to many Christian sociologists, the 20th century was the bloodiest century in the history of Christendom for persecution. I carry in my Bible a picture of a young girl in Indonesia, I believe it is, who is sitting in the middle of her church that was burnt to the ground by Muslims. And she's sitting there, she's probably 10 years old, and holding her burnt Bible. And I put that in my Bible to remind me that no matter what I'm going through, no matter how hard ministry is, and I've been through things I think are hard, but they are nothing. They pale in comparison to our brothers and sisters around the world that for centuries have been persecuted and have had to seal their faith with their blood. And so martyrdom, as dastardly as this one was, is nothing new for Christians. And maybe we all would do ourselves a really healthy service if we ran out and grabbed the latest edition of Voice of the Martyrs or something like that, so that we can be in tune with what is really happening to our brothers and sisters in the Middle East, in China, in Cuba, in South America, in Africa, in the Congo, places like that. Nothing new in North Korea, and now in South Korea. I don't know if you heard, South Korea, they are arresting pastors for preaching the gospel. I want to talk about so many different things, but the other thing I want to talk about before getting to a conversation on the Golden Age is I want to quickly talk about democracy. Remember, We are witnessing the limits of democracy. Is there any perfect government this side of heaven? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. For those of you out there that are calling for a Christian theocracy, a Christocracy, understand there is no such thing as a perfect government this side of heaven. And it doesn't matter how much legislation you do. As I said, you cannot legislate the human heart. That is a spiritual issue. That is a salvific issue, a redemptive issue. God, in his absolute infinite sovereignty, has to change the heart of individuals, or they will never change their worldview. It's that simple. So we need to be consistent in our Reformed theology, in our Calvinism in this moment. We can't abandon our Calvinism uh, when we're thinking about governance, when we're thinking about cultural change and things like that. But we are looking at what we could call the limits of our democracy. The pursuit of happiness has no fundamental definition. And the pursuit of happiness for you could be um, living out your Christian faith, going to work, raising a family, paying your taxes, helping your neighbor, and believing in the creator and the creature, the creator and the creation, and that you believe in providence, you believe that God superintends his creation and the world around us. As you look around at the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, you look around at humanity, you know God is sovereignly sustaining the created order. There's no question about it. But the pursuit of happiness in our democracy can also mean that you may enjoy a happy life believing completely and diametrically opposite to everything that I just said. And just look around. What are we doing? At least in American democracy, what are we doing? We are importing paganism at all-time high. We are importing Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, paganism, animism. And not only that, we're importing and we are fostering and we are supporting and facilitating individual belief systems that are diametrically opposed even to democracy. And I think in a world that is governed by common grace, probably democracy is the best thing you're going to come up with. You're going to come up with some kind of theocratic rule. That's already happened. We saw it in the Roman Catholic Church. And what did it result in? Dark ages, persecution, burning heretics at the stake, the feudal system. I mean, you name it. And so if you think that you and your collective band of theonomist brothers and sisters, all 50 of you, are going to somehow run the country, you're living in an alternate universe, okay? You have not actually been honest with yourself. Demographically speaking, you're not honest with yourself. It's just delusional thinking. But suffice to say that our democracy does not preclude the idea that ideologies are being developed, fostered, incubated right here in America, directly undermining democracy itself. And that's what happens in a fallen world system. Now, last thing I want to talk about is as I watch this tragedy unfold today, it's still unfolding. This is going to send shockwaves for years. But as this tragedy unfolds and the shockwaves keep being felt and the aftershocks keep rippling out in our world, my heart was just utterly broken for Charlie. I prayed that he would make it. He didn't make it. And now we pray for his family, of course, and everyone affected. My understanding is that his daughter was there in the tent. And that's just beyond comprehension. Just beyond. But brothers and sisters, I want to speak to the church of the living God. not just conservatives at large. If you're conservative, but you are not an actual born again Christian, then this is a moment of evangelism for you, but for the church of God. Understand something, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say something that is going to be a little bit controversial, but I think it needs to be said. I think it has to be said. In the book of Zechariah, there are remarkable night, the night visions of Zechariah are just unbelievable. And in the book of Zechariah, chapter 1, we are met by various angels led by one red rider who is then identified as a angel of the Lord, I believe is a Christophany. And these are dispatched to go patrol the whole world and then come back and to report what they had found. And what they had found was that the whole world was at peace. It was at rest. And that angered the Lord. And say, wait a minute, the world is at rest, at peace, and it angered the Lord. And later on, God explains, right? The angel explains to Zechariah why. And he says that he says he's exceedingly angry at the nations. Why? He says, because when he was just a little angry, what did they do during that time when God's wrath was minimal? All they did was further disaster, basically furthering iniquity. We're living in a time right now where there's a little bit of wrath, just like back then. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men that suppress the truth in unrighteousness. But that wrath is minimal wrath in contrast to God pouring out his end time wrath on this world. And the reason I bring up Zechariah is to say, brothers and sisters, there are no secular saviors that you can hope in. Donald Trump cannot save America. Donald Trump cannot save the world. J.D. Vance will not save the world. J.D. Vance will not save America. I don't care if a wild-eyed theonomist gets elected to the presidency. You will not save the world. You will not save America. You will not save the culture. I am sorry. My dear friends, let me put it to you this way. God will not tolerate any talk of a golden age in this present evil age that we live in. He will not tolerate any conversation whatsoever of a golden era. You know why? Because God's golden age, where does that language come from when you're thinking of Christians? Where do Christians get it from? They get it from the new creation language of Isaiah and the prophets and the book of Revelation 21:22 and 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 13. The new creation, new heavens, new earth, and the descriptions that are given in Zechariah and in other places of a coming day of prosperity, of a coming time of fruitfulness, fecundity, growth, vitality, a land flowing with milk and honey, basically. They take it from that language and they try to preemptively apply it to this world. And what I'm saying is that is a dreadful mistake, because there is no golden era or golden age coming to the present evil age. Do you know why? It's not because we might not have seasons of relative peace. Maybe persecution subsides. But the reason it will never be a golden age in God's estimation is because it is not a holy age. The only golden age that God believes in is a holy age, a age of holiness. And that's what obtains in a new creation. In the new heavens and in the new earth, there and there alone will be the place where nothing unclean will be allowed to come in. Nothing unholy, nothing unclean. And until we arrive at that shore, we are never inside of Canaan, heavenly Canaan. We have redemptively, positionally, in Jesus Christ, through salvation, we have come to Mount Zion already. But there is a not yet realization, manifestation of that hope. And that hope will not materialize until the whole realm is a realm of glory and holiness. Until then, we are still awaiting the final crisis, the final cataclysm, the final upheaval, an age that is fallen, still under the curse. And when you're under the curse, people get martyred. And when you're under the curse, people get assassinated. And when you're under the curse, you get cancer and die. When you're under a curse, your husband leaves for no reason whatsoever. Your wife leaves for no reason whatsoever. When you're under the curse, parents abandon their kids with a calloused heart, have no regard for their offspring. When you're under the curse, industrial level sex trafficking is allowed to proliferate all over the planet. According to some sociologists, there is more slavery today than ever before in human history. Think about that. That's life under the curse. And the only place the curse will ever be reversed or removed is told to us in Revelation chapter 22, verse 3, in a new creation, in a heavenly realm, in an eternal state where God and his people will reign in glory forever and ever, worlds without end. Until then, we are living in a fallen age, and it is our spiritual duty as Christians to take people out of Adam, representing the curse, sin, and condemnation, and to put them in the new Adam, the second and last Adam, Jesus Christ, that represents life, peace, and righteousness. That's the spiritual mission of the church. The spiritual mission of the church is not to long for some kind of unholy golden age materialized by technology and politics. That's not your hope. That's not my hope. And that will never be realized because the wrath of God is being revealed and there is more wrath to come. And so our hearts are heavy today. We are, as a nation, reeling. People are searching for answers. But for the Christian church, our answers are crystal clear. No matter how much pain we're in, no matter how much anger we feel inside, the answers for the Christian church are crystal clear. They haven't changed. They haven't changed from yesterday to today. Our hope is fixed. Our hope is sure. Our hope, as Peter says, has been reserved for us in heaven, and it is unshakable. It is unfading hope and can never, ever be removed. And so pray for the country. I know I've told our church, pray for the country, pray for this nation, desperately need revival. And I pray and I hope, by the grace of God, that 1,000 Charlie Kirks will come and take his place now that that cultural warrior and that that Christian uh, evangelist has been murdered in cold blood, martyred because of the Christian worldview in that he delighted in, that he loved, and that he proclaimed unashamed. He had no shame. And so let's follow in Charlie Kirk's example of not being afraid, not being ashamed of the Lord, of the testimony of the Lord. As Paul told Timothy, do not be ashamed of the testimony of the Lord, but instead suffer with me as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. I think that Charlie Kirk was a good soldier of Jesus Christ, and we can only now pray for his family and those around him. So anyway, I had to take to a live broadcast. I had to come on air. I had to speak to this issue.